I see on the phone, it is Congressman Trent Kelly. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. How are you today?
Are you back there yet, or are you headed out, or because you're supposed to be back in Washington, aren't you?
Yeah, so I got home. I think I flew out on the red eye Saturday morning. I had called drill this weekend, and I'm flying back. I'll leave right after I get off this interview and go to the airport in Memphis and fly back.
Well, that ceased to be fun a long time ago, didn't it?
It did. That is, listen, traveling every week. But, listen, I don't stay up there on the weekends if there's any way to get home. I come home and visit with family and visit with constituents and do the things that I think we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Congressman, I said earlier, you were a participant and a witness in modern political history. It went, 15 rounds?
Yeah, 15 rounds, just like a prize heavyweight fight,
yes,
right?
Yes. My question at the end of this, and I know you stuck by, and I think our full delegation as far as GOP stuck by, Kevin McCarthy, is the Republican Party, specifically in the House of Representatives, are they stronger or weaker because of this fight?
I think a little of both, Paul, to be honest. Listen, at the very first, all these negotiations, happened going back to November of last year after the election. So they've been going on. And so 98% of this was already hammered out. And over 90% of the conference agreed that these were good things. And then initially Monday night, I knew we weren't going to get a deal Monday night, but I figured we'd get it Tuesday. Or whatever the second day was. But at some point, it morphed into the goalposts kept moving. People started doing things for individual reasons, not for the good of the country, not for the good of the conference, not for the good of the party, but they started doing it for individual reasons. And but there were people who were just hard-nosed from the get-go. And if you noticed, I sat right in the middle. I talked to 16 of the 20 no's, at least 16 of the 20, if not all 20. And it was an ongoing process. I talked to them throughout. I sat right there in the middle of it. I was negotiating and trying to cool heads. And so it's not surprising. I think after all, we're better off. I don't think democracy is always pretty.
Yeah, I see it in a way that if you're going to fight for that and you win it, and Kevin McCarthy said himself, he said he never gives up, and this proves it. So I see it as the GOP stronger and being able to do that. And you have this total acquiescence in the House. Whatever Pelosi said, everybody bent down. And I think a lot of Americans probably see this in the same way. Here's a cut, and I want you to comment on this, of what the new speaker said. And this was a little bit before the final vote, but here goes.
If Eric Swalwell cannot get a security clearance in the private sector, there's no reason why he should be given one to be on Intel or Homeland Security. He will not be serving there.
So you're going to remove him from those committees?
Ilhan Omar should not be serving on foreign affairs.
What about any committees for Ilhan Omar?
This is a new level of what the Democrats have gone. Adam Schiff, he has openly, knowingly now used a fake dossier, lied to the American public in the process, and doesn't have any ill will, says he wants to continue to do it. So we're going to reshape. I mean, think about what happened to Afghanistan. Why did Afghanistan collapse so fast? Was the Intel Committee under Adam Schiff focused on impeachment and not on the safety of America? Why are people coming across the border that are on a terrorist watch list? What are they doing about it? And their own members on that committee says it's not happening when it's true. We need to have an Intel Committee that looks at what's happening around the world and keeps America safe. It should do exactly what it was created, overseeing of our agencies and others.
You know, Congressman, if you're okay with where we are in this country, some of the appointments that this administration has made, you're either politically ignorant or you just don't give a damn. But, I mean, this is akin to putting Bernie Madoff on the Financial Committee.
It is, and some of those folks will be removed from committees. Some of these constitutional officers who have gotten political will be removed from the positions that they are within the staff, and lots of things. But, I want the American people to remember, Nancy Pelosi didn't get 218 votes with one more vote to give than Kevin had. I think she had 214. She actually brought in someone, drove him in with COVID, knowing he had COVID and the height of COVID, and built a special thing and exposed the whole membership so she could get her last vote. So, this is nothing. It's not as new. It just went a little longer than usual.
I do want to ask you this. One of the controversies on here, and I tend to agree with your group on this one, as far as this, what's the consensus call, not the consensus call, but the vacate call. to motion to vacate. This was one of the things that McCarthy apparently agreed to. The number of members needed to call just one that could call for a motion to vacate. You want to explain that?
Yeah, it just means any member can say, I make a motion. It's a privileged motion, which means anyone can make it and say, I make a motion to vacate the chair. And listen, this thing's been around for over 100 years prior to Nancy Pelosi. She made it where it had to be 50% of her caucus. It's not a big deal. I mean, if people are going to do that, they're going to do that, Paul. But even at the end of the day, if one person is all that does that, or five or whatever, it still takes a majority to vacate. And I just don't think it's going to make that much of a difference one way or the other. I think it's good for people to feel like they have the input. But at the end of the day, a strong leader is going to be able to overcome that every time. And most of these, if they're filed, will be vacated. They'll be tabled and then voted on, and it'll have no consequence.
He also agreed to a rule that says that any move to raise the debt ceiling must also be accompanied by spending cuts. The rules package includes a resolution establishing a House Select Committee on the weaponization of the federal government. McCarthy has agreed to vote individually on 12 appropriation bills rather than one omnibus spending bill. A lot of people are in favor of that one. The package also reinstates the Holman Rule, which lets lawmakers amend appropriation legislation and reduce the salary of government officials. And I got a couple more here. Lawmakers now get 72 hours to review bills before they come to the House floor. Hallelujah. And the rules package also includes votes on bills relating to key sticking points for conservative lawmakers, including on border security and abortion, among other areas. Any comments on those?
Yeah, I mean, they're all good. And listen, it wasn't just this one group of people who negotiated it. That's the whole body. You've been hearing me say most of these things the whole time. Basically, the only thing that moved since Monday of last week when we first started voting was the motion to vacate went from 5 to 1. Everything else was already, all those other rules were already in existence the first vote that we took. And so there was very little movement except on the motion to vacate, and then there were a few other little things that were in there.
Well,
and they're all good. They're the things we've been campaigning on. They're the things we've been wanting. They're good for the whole body. These things make us a better, stronger America that can somehow get this financial crisis and the border crisis and all these things under control. The germaneness and open the floor to more open amendments as long as they're germane to the subject matter. All these are great things.
I think one of the things that we've learned in the last 48 hours is exactly what you're saying, that these changes and everything else were all on there. And then when it got to the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th votes, all the huddle up in the back rooms were, okay, tell us what you want. And then apparently, and McCarthy did this over and over, and apparently they were not able to at least clearly as opposition, tell them what they want. They kept moving the ball.
I will say, I don't know if you saw where I sat, but I'm sitting right in the middle of everybody who's voting the other way, and I'm talking, and you can see that the whole time. And I will say there were somewhere between 3 and 6, started at 6, got down to 3, who all they wanted was McCarthy not to be Speaker, and that's okay because they were very clear about that. They were very articulate. I don't like Kevin McCarthy, and I'm okay with that. And then, but the other ones, a lot of those moved, and when you would ask those other ones outside of that small group, what they wanted, they didn't want anything. They were just enjoying the limelight and enjoying TV time and the TV hits and the fundraising letters. They were sitting right there on the floor, sitting by us. That's what some of them were doing.
I want to ask
there were about 5 or 6 who were they just didn't want Kevin McCarthy.
I know. When we come back, I want to ask you this. How close are we to you getting your committee assignments? And one more quick segment with Congressman Trent Kelly when we return in just a moment. Live from the Trustmark Studios, Trent Kelly, Congressman, Mississippi District 1, 1st District. I have this real quickly here.
The total number of votes cast is 428, of which the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 216.
And now the hard work begins. What we do here today, next week, next month, next year, will set the tone for everything that follows. But I hope one thing is clear after this week. I never give up.
Well, I don't think he ever had. And knowing how many votes that he had constantly over and over, I don't think it was ever really in doubt. When Jim Jordan was nominated, that would probably have been the biggest chance. But of course, Jim Jordan actually voted for McCarthy.
Well, yeah, Jim Jordan. I mean, this was tried to be made a Freedom Caucus thing, and it was not a Freedom Caucus thing. Actually, more people in the Freedom Caucus voted for McCarthy initially than voted against him, and at all times during it. But like Jim Jordan and Warren Davidson and Jeff Duncan and Mark Green and Tim Burchett, those are all Freedom Caucus guys. And they were with McCarthy strong the whole time, the majority of the Freedom Caucus. So, listen, we're in a better place. We got some great rule changes, and we just need to move on, and we need to pass this rule package tonight, get this thing pushed through, and let's get to the business, the American people. Let's hold the Biden administration accountable, and let's start doing some things that are good for America.
Well, you guys have been away for the weekend, so I'm sure the connectivity. Maybe as far as McCarthy, he would know this, but do you think you're going to be able to pass that? We'll have enough votes and patch up that 20 to do this?
I do. Listen, there are some people with heartburn on the kind of the more moderate side of the Republican Party that are frustrated. But Kevin's a good leader in that. Listen, he'll come in there and he's like, these rules, the one they're affecting the most is me. Mm-hmm. And him being the speaker. And I'm good with these, and I think we'll get those rules packages. I don't think it'll be as contentious. You never know, though. Nothing's done till it's done. But I think we'll pass a rule package tonight.
When do you think you'll get your committee assignments, and what do they look like?
Well, we still got a few chairs that were contested that they have to appoint, and once they do that, the committee chairman appoint the subcommittee chairman, unless there's some other things going on with that. So I look by the end of the week to have that, other than Intel, and that's leader appointed. So you still got to do ratios on committees and all those things that have to be negotiated between the parties, and so. It's a little bit of work. So this week, the majority of my committees I should be on, and to be reappointed to Intel, that may be a couple of weeks.
We look at the hearings January 6th, Hunter, and Afghanistan. It's just the three. I'm not even going to say the top three. Do you expect to be in any of those?
Yes. So, a little bit of some of those on the Intelligence Committee. Mm-hmm. And ours are in conjunction with Jim Jordan and some other folks on oversight, and also, but ours will be the quiet part of it. Nobody will ever know I'm involved. It'll just be we'll be getting a lot of the underlying facts and circumstances, relaying those in part of the negotiations. But the primary committees of jurisdiction are going to be oversight and judiciary. But Intel has a large part of both of those.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they'll be televised on most of the liberal networks anymore like they were before, but I guess C-SPAN will still televise some of them, and I hope so, because it's going to be interesting. Certainly, Hunter, and one more thing, the president was down on the border.
I want to be clear here, Paul. We're not going after Hunter. We're going after Joe Biden for dealing through Hunter to do things that are illegal. We're going after the president, not Hunter. Hunter is just he's the one who was the catalyst or the connection between the nexus between the president doing dealings and getting benefits from being the vice president of the United States and president of the United States through his son, I think.
I understand, but the laptop is central to this in many different ways.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the president's visit to the border? And I think the governor of Texas said it best. It's 2 years and $20 million too late.
Yeah, and I didn't even invite the Republican who represents that area, but he's all about being bipartisan right. So I'm taking these Democrats, and I'm not taking any Republicans. I think it's just for the TV to say that he can be there now. That takes one more thing he doesn't have to get beat up over.
What's one of your main objectives as you get back started in this, as far as the new Congress?
Yeah, I mean, my main objective is to work on to make sure we get a budget that balances, to do that in a way that does not destroy our military. And that's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard work, but that's what we should be doing. And so just looking forward to working on my armed services. And we got to get a farm bill through this year, so we want to take care of our farmers and all the producers and all those people tied to the farm industry. So it'll be a busy year legislatively for me.
Absolutely. And a fast 2 years before we get to the election again. So, Congressman Trent Kelly, safe travels, sir. Any final thoughts?
No, but thank you so much, Paul, and thank the American people for enduring this.
You got it. Safe travels, sir.
All right.